Good morning, good people of God. Father Edward Looney here. Grateful that you tune in. This is just the first few minutes of the live broadcast, so we wait to gather an audience. This is day 2 of our Esther Bible study, coming to you here at 7 a.m. Central Time on August 7th. So I'll just catch you up to speed as we wait maybe for some people to join the live audience. Of course, many of you will watch this on the replay. And so appreciative of all the viewers, all the listeners. Just to recap what we're doing, we're going through the Book of Esther, doing this virtual Bible study. Could turn into an ongoing series that I do. It looks like, this is week 1, but looks like Tuesday is a good day just because no morning mass. And maybe just for consistency's sake, we do Wednesday as well. So Tuesday, Wednesday, we would do this little video live series. And I envision that this could go beyond the Book of Esther. Uh, I envision this could become, a reflection on the Psalms. I envision this could, I love St. Bernard of Clairvaux. I wrote my license thesis on St. Bernard of Clairvaux and his Marian homilies on the Assumption. So he has a great work on the Song of Songs. So I could see me maybe we'd read the Song of Songs like this, two chapters a week, and then his homilies. There's 4 volumes, probably about 80 homilies in total, if I had to guess. I think that I could read one of those and just comment on the insight of Bernard of Clairvaux as he comments on the Song of Songs. So I really do believe that this could become a regular series as I look to continue to develop the social media presence and the offerings that I give on social media. So let me know what you think in the comments. We're doing this Bible study on Esther because next month in September, I'm going to Branson for a few days, and I'll be going to Sight and Sound Theater, and I'll be seeing their play, Esther. I've read the Book of Esther before, but really not in a concentrated study or anything, or like reflecting and just allowing a chapter at a time to wash over me. So that's why I think this little study valuable. So we will get into it now. Of course, you always have to have a cup of coffee. This is iced coffee. You can see the ice cubes right there. I'm a big believer iced coffee belongs in summer. So, I don't know. Last week it was so hot and humid here in Wisconsin. I don't know how you could drink a hot cup of coffee. So, anyways, my beautiful Ninja coffee maker has this feature of brewing coffee over ice, so it staggers the percolation and the brewing. So more about coffee than you wanted this morning. But why don't we get right into the Book of Esther here? We're going to read chapter 2 today. We're going to just comment on chapter 2. Probably, I'm guessing, won't be as long as yesterday. Yesterday we went about half an hour. Um, of course, we had preliminary stuff. I'll just say this, one of the comments yesterday talked about, they turned to the Book of Esther from their Jerusalem Bible. Now, the Jerusalem Bible is actually the preferred Bible of Mother Angelica, in case you wanted to know. She, on her set, would have the Jerusalem Bible. Sorry. So, just to say, there are different translations of the Bible. I happen to be using the ESV, the English Standard Version, Catholic edition, available, I think, from the Augustine Institute. So that's what I'm reading. Long time ago on my podcast, when it was called How They Love Mary. Now it's called Hey Everybody, It's Father Edward. But if you look up Hey Everybody, It's Father Edward, you'll get all the episodes because I just renamed the podcast, use the same what we call in podcast lingo RSS feed. So you can go back and find it. But I had this wonderful conversation about the ESV Bible from the Augustine Institute. I think I called the episode like a crash course in the Bible or something like that. So you can look that up. And I think the guy's name was Ben Akers, but don't, no, no, I think he might have did a St. Joseph episode with me. So well, we have a computer. Why don't we just look it up? So, hey, everybody. Father and Word. So when I do this podcast, I need, or when I do our live stream on social for the Bible study, for example, I have to use Chrome instead of Safari. So like if I would have used Safari, it would have came up right away. So that's why I had to Google it. Let's see, search. Um Crash Course Bible. Oh, no, not called that. So just type in the word Bible. A lot of episodes about the Bible. A crash course in the Bible. I don't know why it didn't come up. Okay, let's see. So it was Dr. Mark Gizak. Dr. Mark Gizak. So I'll just post that episode here. Should you ever be interested in listening to that? It was a very popular episode, probably one of my top 50 episodes. When you've done almost 300 episodes, I I don't know the stats really, but I do remember it had a large listenership post. So all that to say is that there are different translations of the Bible. So essentially, what does that mean? It means that there's the New American Bible, there is the RSV Bible, there is the Dewey Rames Bible. These are all Catholic Bibles. There are Protestant translations out there, of course, too. Um, Essentially the Bible translator used, in one case they use the Greek text, in the other case they use the Hebrew, or there are different nuances. Maybe they try to go for a more familiar tone. So that's why we have all these different Bibles. So as I read, and if you're reading, it's probably going to be a little different. So maybe you just want to listen, maybe you do just want to read along as well. But just know, there was the comment yesterday, and I'm just kind of explaining why that is. So it's all about Bible translations. So you could have three Bibles and read the same passage, and there would be little nuance differences. So that's that. All right. So we're going to read Esther chapter 2. There are 10 chapters of Esther, so we're going to be doing this as a 5-week Bible study. We will conclude then just in time for me to go see Esther, and I'll probably do like a live stream then, the day after I see it. So yeah, let's read chapter 2 of Esther now. Esther, chosen queen. Chapter 2. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus had abated, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. So remember, yesterday, Queen Vashti was summoned by the king. He really wanted to show her off, and she said, no. Then the king's young men who attended him said, let beautiful young virgins be sought out for the king, and let the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in Susa, the citadel, under custody of Hegai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women. Let their cosmetics be given them, and let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti. This pleased the king, and he did so. There's a footnote here. Hebrew, who is good in the eyes of the king. So, who pleases the king. Okay, I'm not sure that footnote was necessary. Now there was a Jew in Susa, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjamite who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives, carried away with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. He was bringing up Hadassah, that is, Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. What a sad state. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and her mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So when the king's order and his edict were proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in Susa, the citadel, in custody of Hegai, Esther also was taken into the king's palace and put in custody of Hegai, who had charge of the women. And the young woman pleased him and won his favor. And he quickly provided her with cosmetics and her portion of food, and with 7 chosen young women from the king's palace, and advanced her and her young women to the best place in the harem. Esther had not made known her people or kindred for Mordecai, for Mordecai had commanded her not to make it known. And every day Mordecai walked in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and what was happening to her. Now, when the turn came for each young woman to go in to King Ahasuerus, after being 12 months under the regulations for the women, since this was the regular period of their beautifying, 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with spices and ointments for women. When the young women went into the king in this way, she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening, she would go in, and in the morning, she would return to the second harem in custody of Shashagazah, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not go in to the king again, unless the king delighted in her, and she was summoned by name. When the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his own daughter, to go into the king, she asked for nothing except what Hegai, the king's eunuch, who had charge of the women, advised. Now Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. And when Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king gave a great feast for all his officials and servants. It was Esther's feast. He also granted a remission of taxes to the provinces and gave gifts with royal generosity. Mordecai discovers a plot. Now, when the virgins were gathered together the second time, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Esther had not made known her kindred or her people as Mordecai had commanded her. For Esther obeyed Mordecai, just as when she was brought up by him. In those days, as Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigthan and Teresh, 2 of the king's eunuchs, who guard the threshold, became angry and sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. And this came to the knowledge of Mordecai, and he told it to Queen Esther. And Esther told the king in the name of Mordecai. When the affair was investigated and found to be so, the men were both hanged on the gallows. It was recorded in the book of the Chronicles in the presence of the king. So that's chapter 2. Now we've read chapter 1, chapter 2. We've read 1/5 of the book of Esther. And we'll continue reading it next week, Tuesday, Wednesday. But a few comments, I guess. And you know, if there's anything that you want to chime in on, you can, of course, do so in the comment box. You could do it live. You can do it later. I will try to patrol the comments and comment on them later. Then if it's off air, whatever. So I was just doing that. I was just doing that this morning. That there's this group on Facebook that I oversee about the mystical city of God, and I'm grateful people are still having conversations about that work. And so I I was commenting on several different posts, interacting with the people about that. So, anyways, um, yeah. So, if you leave a comment, I'll happily, hopefully, respond. Don't hold me to it, though. So let's see here. So, chapter 2, Queen Esther, what we just read. So, again, chapter 1, Queen Vashti deposed of being queen because she wouldn't pleasure the king. Chapter 2, we get who Esther is. So we meet Esther, the character. Kind of what a sad little life story of Esther. What a sad little story in that her mother and father died. She's kind of this orphan girl taken in by Mordecai. What was Mordecai? Mordecai was her uncle, I believe, is what we read. So, um, yeah. So just she experienced loss in her life. I think that's just something to think about, like this character of the scripture, what she's going to do, but then, how God really takes her from this nothingness, if you will, and exalts her then to become queen. Kind of hear the what we hear why or what the king wants, Ahursis, that he wants these young girls to be brought. And so it's kind of very sensual in that sense. So um that this king wants to, I guess in a sense, take advantage of these young people. So that's sad. So we see the sadness of the state of Esther. We see the sadness just about kind of the state of the depravity of the king's soul and his maybe disordered desires that aren't aligned with what God would want for him. So um there's that. Now, uh one of the things that I like to talk about in the Bible is there's something called typology. And so typology is, sometimes we could call it like a foreshadowing, a prefigurement. For example, we can really say that Eve is a type of the Blessed Virgin or a foreshadowing. That this woman, Eve, in the Genesis, that Mary will become the new Eve. And so there's this biblical typology. So essentially, we can see in figures of the scriptures a type of Mary, a type of Jesus. Jesus is called the new Moses. He's called the new Noah. So we look at these old biblical figures and we see how they foreshadow, prefigure, point to Jesus, or how Jesus points back to them. Esther, in my study of Mariology, Esther is a type of Mary. That we can look at the person of Esther and we can see these Marian qualities in her. Let me just share one that I specifically underlined here. Now, Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. That's one line. And then the second is, the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. So I single out these two lines here as kind of a type of Mary. Now, Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. So, what we know about Mary is that Mary was immaculately conceived. And so, what that means is if Mary was immaculately conceived, she had to be distinctly different from everyone else, that she was different from all her peers. And this is something that I marvel over in my own thoughts about Our Lady, that people had to know that she was special. And so Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. So that's one way, I think. But then, more significantly, the king loved Esther more than all the women. Now, some people don't like it when we say that God loves some more than others. But God loved Mary more than others. I believe that to be true. God loved Mary because Mary was going to bear the Son of God, who is the second person of the Trinity. And so God loved Mary so much then that he preserved her from original sin. So the very fact of the Immaculate Conception is the reason why God loved Mary more than all the others. Because she's different again, chosen by God. The king loved Esther more than all the women. So the king, well, we could translate God, looking at Mary, God loved Mary more than all the others, chose her from before the world began. And she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins. Grace and favor. Hail, full of grace. Hail, favored one. Another translation. We get both of those here. She won grace and favor in his sight, more than all the virgins. So Mary is full of grace. So that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Well, we know that Mary is the queen of heaven and earth. And so Mary as queen, Mary as the queen mother, well, Esther as queen. So we have these parallels of Esther and Our Lady. So I think that's something that, the significance of this book and the significance of the person or figure of Esther is super important when it comes to biblical typology. And then we have Mordecai discovering the plot. So Mordecai makes known. So makes known to the queen, makes known to Esther, the little girl he raised. Mordecai goes to Esther and says, "Tell the king these people have a plot against him." And so Esther goes to the king, makes it known. This is really the role of the queen. The queen is to be the the mediator between the people and the king, the intercessor. So Esther is filling that role that Mary, again, this is a part of Marian typology. So that Mary goes to Jesus with our requests, that Mary advocates, that Mary makes known. Just as Esther took and received the comment of Mordecai and brought it to the king, and the king acted accordingly. So that's chapter 2 of the book of Esther. I hope you'll enjoy this Bible study that we're undertaking on, I guess, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So mark your calendars, check the feed. Hopefully, it was 7 o'clock today. That's a good time for me. So we'll probably try to do 7 o'clock unless, life happens or something like that. But Tuesday and Wednesday, Bible study time. I'd like to get on a more regular social media rhythm, especially with video content. So maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Bible study. Thursday would be the new day that I would release travel videos, maybe call it Travel Thursday or something like that. So continuing to reboot social media and offerings and doing things. So grateful you tuned in. If you didn't tune in, if you didn't listen, these things wouldn't happen. So thanks for all your support. Thanks for being here. And until next time, may God bless you and Mary pray for you.